What's up guys, welcome back to the poker vlog. We are off to play a private game session in Springfield, hoping to follow up our big win from last time with another positive outing. Let's play well, catch some cards, and make some money. Help give me some run good by smashing the like button, and if you enjoy these kind of videos, consider clicking that big red subscribe button. It's 100% free and keeps me motivated when I'm sitting at the desk editing all these videos. Anyway, let's hop into the action, buying in for $500. Let's see if these chips can find some friends. So the first hand of the night, we look down at Queen 10 of clubs from under the gun, starting this hand off with about $500. I think it's the very first hand or very close to the very first hand. There's a button straddle. We've got a call from the small blind, a call from the big blind. I go ahead and make it $25. Seems like a pretty loose open. And we end up with a bunch of callers. We have the button, small blind, and middle position player, who all of whom play a whole bunch of hands. Flop comes down. A very blasé one for us. It's Jack 2-2 with 2 spades, so a pure whiff. Action checks to me. I decide to c-bet anyway and put out $45. I think this is pretty terrible, but it does thin the field a lot. We have only the button that makes the call. Now this is a very active player. He could definitely have a 2, he could definitely have a jack, so I don't really know. Turn ends up coming down the Jack of diamonds, so double paired board here. Don't really know how to proceed. I end up putting out $80, hoping that he was on some sort of spade draw maybe, and he makes the call. So I think we should pretty much be in almost 100% pure shutdown mode. Not really loving the way that I played this hand, especially early on. I don't know why I decided to just blast off into this guy, but I did. So we are off to see a river, which comes down the ace of clubs. So I think this is a pretty decent card for us to represent. Obviously, we are playing the board. Not really sure what to do in this situation. I do know that I should never really be in this situation though. I decided to bet out $120 here. I think this is very questionable, but I guess we're emptying the chamber. I don't know if that's a big enough sizing, but I think it'll get the job done if he has a missed draw, obviously. Unfortunately, he snaps it off and shows us Jack 10. So I don't know what he was doing, but we lose this one. In the first hand, without table footage, we look down at pocket kings, and this is a pretty good situation. I go ahead and open up for 20 bucks, and a very tilted player who's down to his last $90 shoves all in over the top. Obviously, we are snap calling here. We see a clean flop, no ace, clean turn, and by the river, he's drawn dead. So we go ahead and take this one down, scoop it up a nice little pot, makes up a little bit for the debacle in hand number 1, but we'll take it. The next hand, I look down at ace queen of spades from the big blind, starting this hand off with about $360. I go ahead and open at $20 over a straddle, a button straddle, and there's a button straddle in pretty much every hand, so we're basically playing 1-2-5. We get 2 callers, including the player who plays every single hand, and then we see a 3-bet. So interesting spot. 3-bet from a player who can actually 3-bet a semi-reasonable range and not just nutted hands. I decide to call. We end up getting one of the initial callers going all in for $90, so all in for less. And the player who plays every single hand actually folds, which is a big shocker since he plays every single hand pretty much. Flop comes down, not our favorite flop. Flop is ace 10-6 with 1 spade, so not really feeling it. The player who 3-bet shoves all in. I'm definitely folding here. The player who was all in for less had pocket kings. The player who shoved had ace king. The pocket kings end up holding, so yeah, we were just way behind in this spot, even though we start off with a premium hand. So, oh well, on to the next one. I guess it could have been worse. Bit after that, we look down at pocket queens under the gun, starting this hand out with only 280 bucks. Yeah, things have not been going great. I open up to 20 again. The player who calls every single time makes the call, and our favorite player in the game ends up calling in the small blind. The flop comes down. Pretty reasonable one for us. It's all undercards, 10-6-5 with 2 spades. Action checks to me. I go ahead and bet $45, and the button shoves all in for 200, something like that effective, and I end up calling. He has to run it twice, and we're pretty indifferent. We don't really mind. We'll do it regardless. Turn comes down the 10 of clubs, and the river is the 9 of diamonds on the first board, so feel pretty okay about that. No spade seems pretty important here. On the next turn, we see the queen of clubs, so obviously we love that. River's the 2 of diamonds. Our opponent shows 6-5 of clubs, so we end up winning both boards. The board pairing was pretty key, counterfeited his weird little 2-pair, so we'll go ahead and take this one down. Obviously, we can see that he is literally playing any 2 cards, so anytime we can get involved with him, we need to be very aware that he has no actual range here. He can just have any 2, but also that we're gonna have a huge range advantage anytime we get involved with him. So we will we'll take that with no complaints. In the next one, I look down at pocket 7s from the cutoff, starting this hand out with about $500. There's a button straddle, as usual. Action ends up limping to me in the cutoff. I go ahead and make it $25. The button, the big blind, who's the player who plays every hand, and under the gun, who is our favorite player, who's also very active, all make the call. Flop comes down a fairly interesting one, I guess. The flop has 9-8-3 rainbow. Action checks to me. I bet $45. And everybody folds. Now, the reason this hand is a little bit interesting is because I get a speech from the button who plays every single hand about how I stole the pot, and also he predicted my open and says my $20 hands are more like $7 hands. Now, opening for $20 or $25 in a straddle pot where there's already 3 or 4 limpers honestly seems a little low to me. I should probably be opening something to more like $30 or maybe $35 with that much dead money in the middle. Anyway, we can see that we're somehow acquiring a reputation as a loose opener, so we will just file that away and take that information into future hands. Pretty quickly, after that pocket 7s hand, we lay down at pocket 5s from the big blind, starting this hand with about $550. Action limps around to me. I'm gonna go ahead and raise it up again. I don't know why I only make it 20 this time. There must have been fewer limpers. Under the gun, who says I open like calls. The player who plays every single hand shoves all in for $65. I end up calling, and so does the other player. Flop comes down, ace 3-4, all hearts, so that's pretty weird. I don't have a heart, so I think that's actually a good thing in this situation since all I have is pocket 5s. Action ends up checking through. Turn comes down to 6 of diamonds, checks through again, rivers the 9 of spades, checks through one last time. I didn't see any point in firing off into a dry side pot. I show under the gun mucks, and the button shows us 9-8 offsuit. So yeah, he rivered us. Pretty unfortunate there. Oh well, what are you gonna do? Dude's getting it in with 9-8 offsuit pre-flop, so no complaints. Would have liked to win the pot, obviously, but oh well. A little while later, we look down at pocket 5s once again. This time we're in the small blind, and we're starting to hand off with about $500. There's a whole bunch of limpers, not in a straddle pot this time. I make it $15, and only the cutoff calls. So, off to see a flop with not 1, but 2 5s. The flop is 5-5-3, so we flop quads here. I check, and unfortunately our opponent checks back. I don't think there's any reason for me to bet here unless I'm trying to like induce something. Obviously I have so much of this board locked up, I just think this is a trap spot, although it's the most obvious trap spot ever. So maybe mixing in some like, I don't know, just firing away right off the bat could be good. Turn comes down 3 of diamonds. I bet out $15, hoping that he can have improved somehow. Hopefully he has a 3, and he makes the call. River comes down to 9 of hearts. I bet $65. He makes the call, so we're very happy with that, but we don't get to see what he has. He mucks his cards. Obviously our quads are best. Yeah, so always cool to end up with quads, but I don't know, just feel like we could have gotten more somehow. I'm not sure how, but I don't know. A little bit later on, I look down at 8-7 of clubs from under the gun +1, starting this hand with about $600. There's a button straddle, 2 limpers to me. I go ahead and make it $20. The cutoff calls and the button calls. So we're off to see a flop, which comes down a fantastic flop for us. It's Jack 10-9, so we are flopping the bottom end of the straight. It's a rainbow board. There's even a club on there, so it gives us some backdoor flush outs. Action ends up checking to me. I bet $45, and the cutoff raises to 100. The big blind folds, and now it's up to us. Now, do we want to put in a raise here, or do we want to just call and evaluate turns? I decide to go ahead and raise it up to $250. I don't like this. I think we should just go ahead and make the call. Although it's probably a check raise, there's some chance he could have some 2 pairs here. Although if he has 2 pairs, I don't think he's gonna fold to this raise, but maybe he will. I don't know, my reputation felt weird, at the table felt weird in this session. Like usually people regard me as a generally tight overall player, and this one people were talking about how I would play super loose. So I don't know, you guys need to pick a side. But anyway, unfortunately, as you can probably tell with the way I'm explaining this hand, he puts in the fold, so we don't get the maximum here. We win a nice little pot, but I feel like we won a lot less than we could have flopping the straight here. Next hand, I look down at ace-8 of spades from the big blind, playing 6-handed here, and I built up a nice little stack. I got $750-ish. I decided to open up to 20 bucks over a button straddle, who is a player who came from the other much more high stakes table. Under the gun calls, under the gun +1 calls, and we are off to see a flop, which is a fairly interesting one. The flop is 7-6-5 with 1 spade. So not bad at all for us. We're flopping an open-ended, top end of the open-ended straight, and we have backdoor flush outs. I go ahead and lead out for $45, and we get a call from the player who came over from the other table. So he's someone who normally plays higher stakes, and who knows, he could be stuck or just be playing different because he's playing lower stakes. Not really sure. Off to see a turn, which comes down to 2 of diamonds. I decide time to go ahead and keep on barreling here. I would do this with all my over pairs, all my sets. If I flopped a straight here, I would hopefully barrel, but who knows, given how I played earlier hands in the session. I bet $75, and he doesn't think about it for very long before making the call. So we are hoping for some help on the river, which comes down to 3 of clubs. So we brick out our straight, lots of other straights get there, but it doesn't really make too much sense for him to have called all the way here and never raised, and I'm just not really buying what he could possibly have, and this is one of the worst hands we're going to end up in this situation with. So it's time to put in a bluff, barreling again, bet out $125, and he thinks about it for quite a while, goes well into the tank. Eventually he makes the call and shows us 9-6 of clubs. So he called us with second pair, like, seems pretty thin. I'm surprised to see him make the call here. I could have a lot of different hands. I guess he thinks I would shut down with all my medium pocket pairs, or even my big pocket pairs. Like, I can have anything here, so who knows? I guess I get owned in this one. I'm not really sure. He does have the nut blocker with the 9, I guess. I don't really know. It doesn't make a whole ton of sense to me. His call on the turn doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. No part of this makes sense unless he's stuck and just wanted to try to catch me here and thinks I'm like running over the table or trying to make some sort of move or something. But anyway, good call by him. We lose this one. Pretty unfortunate. End up cashing out not too long after that, taking a small loss on the session. So pretty disappointing overall. After that last disaster of a hand, the game continued to kind of dwindle, and we eventually cash out for about $500. A slight loss on the night, but with how bad we played overall, I'm not too upset about it. We're gonna jump right back into the mix, so stay tuned. Another video coming next week at the absolute latest. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy the videos and want to see more, and do me a favor and hit that like button to help me defeat the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.